Hey, how you doing, guys? I figured I'd make this video because actually on my last video that I made of PC games, I got a message from one person on YouTube requesting how do you play these games on new hardware. And DOSBox is a great program. However, when it comes to some games that are in between Windows 95, Windows 98, a lot of games, there's a few games on Steam, but some of those games just kind of got lost in translation. We'll go over those later. But the conversation really went on into graphics cards, and what graphics cards we were playing these games on. And as we were having this conversation, I really started to wonder about, hey, I really spent a lot of money and time on graphics cards, and I had a dilemma that I could never get rid of them. Because after you go through playing these games and the card becomes antiquated, I had a hard time just, okay, I'm going to sell it to some dude who's only going to give me a few bucks for it. And I just ended up keeping him. And I'm glad I did, because over the years I've come up with a pretty nice collection of graphics cards. And we're going to start out with that. Maybe this will help you go down memory lane and check out some of the graphic cards. Hey, maybe you even had one growing up, or maybe you still do and use it. In that case, well, it's time for an upgrade. But hey, here we go. This is the first one over here. This is actually a pure 2D card. This is actually one of the first graphics cards I ever had. This is an ATI Mach 64. Right before the graphics cards that you know today, which are 3D, hardware accelerated, this is what came out. This was a 2D graphics card only. When you were playing Heretic, Doom, and all those other 2D great games, and no, they were not true 3D as much as the box told you it was, this was the card that you played it on. This was the ATI Mach 64. Strictly a PCI card, as you could see. It was only until later, when 3DFX released a Voodoo, that you would require actually a cable that connected between those two cards that pretty much required you to have a 2D and 3D card in the same computer. That's right, 2D and 3D was not on the same card. It was only until later on, when Voodoo released, I believe it was the Voodoo 2, that was able to have both the 3D and the 2D on the same card. If you had 3DFX Voodoo 1, the original Voodoo, guess what, guys? You had to actually have a 2D and 3D card in the same computer with a cable. Can you imagine that? Hey, progress is great, right, huh? Progress is great. Alright. So moving along with that, I guess this is kind of jumping ahead, but hey, this is the original TNT NVIDIA card. This is, I guess, the other side of the spectrum. This is also a very antiquated card. I remember playing the original Quake on this. And I don't remember if I paid this. It could have been a gift. It probably was a gift because I was pretty much in diapers at the time. And you know what? This definitely has a lot of hours on this. And a lot of game time. Great game right here. I mean, video card in which played the games. Let's see overhead here. Moving on here. This is, I guess, when the 9200, this is the 9200 ATI. This is getting a little ahead. This is getting along the times when there was Unreal Tournament, the original Unreal Tournament, rather, and games that were in between those two, the 2D and the 3D realm here. This card, the original Daikatana. Do you remember that game? Romero's pretty much shamed game that was critically acclaimed but was really critically shamed. It was pretty bad, and this was the game I unfortunately, graphics card that I unfortunately played that game on. Well, a funny story, I got this card prior to that, and I was so excited to play it. I got it, and the first game when you land in like a sewer pit and there's helicopters flying like above you, it was so laggy. I was like, man, this is horrible. I need to upgrade. This card sucks. And, I think this is 128 megs. Let's see. Maybe if my memory is correct, it may have something on the back, huh? Let's see. No. Nope. Not going to tell me, huh? Nope. It might be 64. Probably most likely 64, but hey. But anyway, it was so laggy that I had to get rid of this. And you would think I'd throw it out the window, but, can't do that with a card that I paid. This was a gift, hey. I paid nothing for it, but, someone paid for it. So, I upgraded to this baby. So anyone who knows anything about graphics cards knows what this is. This is, take a guess, see if you're right. No, you're wrong. You probably said 9700, right? Nope. This is Radeon 9500 Pro, 128 megabytes. Great card, excellent card. It solved the frame rate issues I was having with the game, and in a way I wish it didn't, because that game sucked. And you know, what can you say? It was maybe if it was hyped any less, it would have been decent, but the fact that the whole world was watching and came out and was so mediocre and boring, it just wasn't good as Doom. But anyway, Radeon 9500 really paved the way for some of the great graphics cards to come. ATI really was the king of that day. Then came the 9700, 9700 Pro, which I have somewhere, and the 9800, 9800 Pro, 9800 XT, and so on and so forth. I have the 9800 XT somewhere also. I'm not even going to bother looking for that or showing it to you. Actually, I know where it is, but, you know, who wants to see that? You already know what that is. Let's see here. So now we're going to go through all that and move on to the next generation here. What's next? We're going to skip ahead to this. This was, take a guess, see if you got this. This is the 5200 FX. This is getting into the time periods of Unreal Tournament 2003. The worst card that NVIDIA probably ever made in that generation. Everyone roasted it. It sucked, and it still sucks to this day. I'm just keeping it for the memories. Copper heatsink, though, hey. The next set of video cards that I have is really because of what happens when you try to sell things and no one really pays for them when they agree to buy it. So you end up having a big lot of graphics cards that are pretty decent, but, you know, you just get tired of trying to sell and, you know, not even worth it. So here it is, starting with the 6 series here. The actual series of this card is unknown because I got it such a long time ago. I used it, abused it, overclocked it, tried to sell it for ridiculously cheap, even disclaiming that I overclocked it. Still no one bought it. Someone attempted to buy it and didn't pay. So after that one strike, I attempted to never sell again, and it's paid off. Not. But guess what? You know, here it is. Moving right along here. GTX 7800. I had this in SLI. I used to play games like Morrowind and the original Fear. It was great. And a lot of people used this in SLI. It was actually one of the most popular cards. When I used to be in this scene, everybody had this in SLI, and it made the biggest difference in games like Fear, and that was such a popular game. Oh, it's bringing me down memory lane just thinking about it. It was that nail gun, the bolt gun, great. And you know what? Here it is. Still works to this day. I thought about selling it, but then I thought about the previous debacle with the other graphics card, and I decided against it, so here it is. Alright, moving right along. This is, if I can find it, here it is. This is the same card as you saw before, 512 megabyte version. This helped when you had games that were, you know, at the highest resolution at the time that people were using was 1920 by 1080, and people were using, it was very popular at the time to be getting TV as monitors. Big thing for people at the time to get, you know, 1080p TV monitors and use high resolution, high VMEM graphics cards, and then using that resolution. And this was one of the cards that people used. 512 megabyte GTX 7800. And that's exactly what I did. I got myself a 37-inch TV, and it really helped on the high resolutions. Moving right along. This card is pretty interesting. This is the 7900 GTO, which is basically a 7900 GTX that couldn't really make the par for the core and memory clocks. So they downgraded, they downclocked, underclocked, if you want to be correct, the core, and they sold it as this GTO. And half the time you could pretty much overclock it to the core of a GTX, 7900 GTX, and it worked just fine, like I did with this one. But, and again, I tried to buy this, tried to sell it rather, and I actually had like a couple of no buys and no pays. And it pissed me off so much, and again, went on a couple of future generations of not selling stuff again. So here it is. Lays broken-hearted, but it actually still works. Moving on. GTX 280. This was the game, the graphics cards that you played with games like GTA 4, things like that. I remember playing GTA 4 on this card, and it made the difference.
when the car was coming out of the boat, and it was going across the water in the very beginning when he meets up with his cousin. I remember the frame rate was just sky high, and I was like, this is worth the $400 that I paid for this. And you know what? I wouldn't get anywhere near it a few years later, so it still has the original PCIe Express cover, and cool to look back at. The graphics are pretty cool on the graphics card, and you know what? And by graphics, I mean these cool little, designs going on here, and here it is. Cool to look at. Now here, it's, as I said before, it's gotten to the point where I don't even bother trying to sell stuff because everybody complains, oh, this is taking too long. Oh, why is the shipping so high? Oh my god, you're taking too long to ship it out. Or, in fact, no one even pays anything. So guess what? Look at this. This is a GTX 580. I just had this like a few years ago, and it still works. But guess what? Here it is. And, in my closet I have a 680, which I forgot to bring down here for this video. And I should have brought it down because the graphics on that card, as far as like cover art, if you will, is pretty damn cool. But, I'm not going to go upstairs and make this video any longer than it needs to be. But here it is. I mean, these are just cool relics of the past. This is from the not-so-distant past. But, you know what? It's a cool and bitter testament. These are all things. These are all things people could have enjoyed. All things people could have used. All things people could have played massive LAN parties with, but just, they were so annoying. And they, just not showing up to pay from Craigslist. Saying they were going to buy something on auction sites, and just not paying for it. These all could have been in someone else's computers being enjoyed. And, it's gotten to the point where it's just like, even giving it away would probably be annoying. You'd probably ship this out to somebody, and then you'd say, oh, you know what, it's going to get shipped out. And then, guess what? They would say it got lost in the mail. Oh, yeah, you false advertised a free gift, so now you owe me the next generation above. And you know what? It's gotten to the point where I don't even like dealing with people when it comes to selling or giving stuff away. So, you know what? It's cool to have this cool little museum of graphics cards. So, you know what? Long may it continue, and it's cool that I can, share this stuff with people who actually might like to look at all this cool stuff, but, unfortunately, for the rest of 99.9% of the population that just gives everybody a hard time, sorry, not sorry.